she designed, and that was something that actually revealed the power of blockchain to the world. So, like you can see in this diagram here, you have multiple nodes. Each of them have a copy of the ledger. This ledger is, or this network ensures that this ledger is up to date and there is a single version of truth across the network at all times. So you have nodes which does transactions. Transaction gets flooded in the network, which gets validated. If it is a valid transaction, it again gets flooded and it gets added to the transaction pool. And after a set period of time, based on certain timing, which is set in the network for Bitcoin blockchain, it is 10 minutes. Block creation happens through a process called mining. Once the mining happens and a valid block is created, it gets flooded in the network and block gets accepted. So if 4 is the miner, once it creates a block, it adds here. So this is a new block which we are adding, and it also floods through the network so that it gets added everywhere. Okay, so here also it gets added, here also it gets added, here also it gets added. Now there is one more concept which I want you to understand associated with mining. It is called mining pools. So we have learned that mining is a resource-intensive process where you need computational power. There are special hardware and boxes designed so that this hardware is more computationally efficient for doing the hashing functions. Okay, using different values of nodes. So one development which has happened in market is that, so assume that I have 1 million miners in the network. 1,000 miners have come together and formed a pool of miners. Now what will happen if they form a pool of miners? This 1,000 miners can actually divide the range of nonce values to attack, and essentially they can find out the valid nonce value, and hence they can find out a valid block much faster than other individual miners. So this is one development which has happened in the Bitcoin world, where initially it was individual miners who used to mine, then they started upgrading their machines, they went for higher end machines which can computationally move much faster, and later the development happened that mining pools started developing, which is a combination of miners. They start attacking the different range values of nonces. Miner who starts from 1 till, in our previous example, we told that the nonce value was 11,007. So this mining pool, it might assign 1 to 1,000 to one guy, 1,000, 1 to 2,000 to another guy, and so on, since it has 1,000 people. And the 11th guy will find out this value immediately. In probably 7 iterations, it will find the 11,007 is the value. It will tell all the miners that I have found out, stop, and it will create the valid block and it will flood the network with the valid block. So essentially, mining pools create sort of a monopoly, or it creates a pool of miners who work with a common interest. So in mining pool, if 1,000 miners are part of the pool, and if someone is finding a valid block, then the reward which comes from mining, it gets divided across all these miners who are participants in the pool. This is one of the characteristics of Bitcoin, which is actually prompting or inspiring the creators to look at various other possibilities of consensus mechanism. Why? Because there are mining pools which actually, this is my aged, or it is like little old memory. So there are mining pools which actually control around 31% of the computational power of the entire Bitcoin network. There are mining pools which control 19%, etc. So if multiple mining pools can come together, they might actually go above 51%. And whenever you have more than 51% computational power in the network, you can actually start editing. So essentially, which means that you, so if it is a network of 5 of us, assume that these 3 form part of one network, and since it is more than 51%, if they start another fork from here and start another chain, and all of them start like this, and if they tell this is a valid one, by the rule of majority consensus, this becomes the valid chain now, which essentially means that they can actually derail this network and they can create a fork and they can take things in their own interest. So this is also one of the reasons why previously we discussed about proof of work, what are the disadvantages. One is energy inefficiency, and second was computationally very heavy. And the third reason is the creation of mining pools, which actually could form cartels in future, and they could actually take the network to a different angle. So for that reason, there are various different consensus mechanisms being worked out in the market. There are various evolutions of proof of work, and that is what we are going to discuss next.